Imagine for a moment that you have a rich uncle. And this uncle isn't just rich. He's really, really rich. Like, he isn't a millionaire. He's got thousands of millions. He's got many billions of dollars. And his greatest joy in life is to give it to you. It just really fills him up to give to you. And there's only one little hitch to it. And that little hitch is that, one, you have to express gratitude. And number two, you have to in turn give a portion of what has been given to you. You can give it back to the rich uncle in form of a smaller gift or even a thank you note, or you can give it to someone else. You can continue to give, but you have to give a portion of that which has been given to you. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you all for coming out on this seemingly snowy Alaskan day. Finally, winter may be on the way.
Woohoo!
Some are happy. Christina's not. Jenna, thank you. That was so beautiful. When you sing, all your hard work, your talent is all on display, and it motivates all of us, and thank you. The title of my talk today is Be a Good Receiver. Three major points. One, I'm going to talk about the ability to receive. Number two, how giving and receiving are bound together. And thirdly, when we open ourselves to receiving, all of life becomes a gift. First of all, the ability to receive is an important part of the flow of abundance in our lives. Ernest Holmes, in Living the Science of Mind, wrote, God is life, and life gives itself, that's with a capital I, gives itself to us. It does not give some of itself, it gives all of itself. But the gift without a receiver cannot complete itself in the individual life. There can't be a gift unless there's a receiver. Receive generously. It was once said that Rudyard Kipling, who was a famous poet and had published and had done quite well with his poetry. He had made a lot of money from his poetry, was approached by a reporter who had done some math about Rudyard Kipling's income and about his prolific writing, and they said, I just did the math on this, and sir, were you aware that you have made approximately $100 for every word you have published? And Rudyard Kipling says, well, no, I was not aware of that. And so this reporter said, well, then I would like one of those words. He reached in his wallet and he took out a $100 bill and he gave him this $100 bill and he says, I'd like one word. Rudyard Kipling looked at it, folded it up, put it in his pocket and said, thanks. He's got the idea of receiving. Accept graciously and generously from others. It can be a compliment or a gift or anything that's given. It can be a meal. It can be anything. And I think we can learn from our children. Once again, we seem to learn from them a lot. What's the holiday we have coming up? Halloween. Do the kids go around knocking on doors saying trick or treat? Oh, well, I don't really deserve that candy bar. Of course not. They are born good receivers. They know how to receive. When you accept without qualifications, you are honoring the other person's flow of giving. Until we can receive with an open heart, we are never really giving with an open heart. When we attach judgment to receiving help, we knowingly or unknowingly attach judgment to giving help. That's from Brene Brown in her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, which is a topic of one of the proposed classes. If you stay for the meeting afterwards, I've worked up some classes that are a little different, and it's from one of the books in there. Many of us have been taught that we cannot accept something unless we earn it. That's where my thing is. Oh, I have to earn it. I have to work hard to earn it. But we can change those neural pathways. We've talked about this before and how we go about changing the neural pathways. We fall into these old habits that are hard to break. There was once a convent, I believe this was in Central Europe, and there was a fire in this convent. And up on the 4th floor, there were a group of nuns, and they were trapped by this fire and no way to get back out. And the fire is rising, and they were in extreme danger. And they thought about what they could do. And they tried to think of different things, a way they could get down. And by jumping 4 floors, they'd be hurt as bad as if they were caught in the fire. So what they decided to do, one of them had this great idea and said, well, sister, if we take off these old robes and we tie them together, we can tie the end of it and we can at least get down far enough to where when we drop, we won't be hurt. And they thought about it. Well, it just might work. So they all took off their old robes. They tied them together and they did it down. And it says, aren't you afraid that these old robes are going to tear or break and it's going to send us plunging to our deaths? And the nun whose idea was said, oh no, not at all. Don't you realize old habits are hard to break? I'm back in my groove. I got a lot of booze, yeah. But you'll remember that old habits are hard to break, and that we get into these patterns of thinking that, oh, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy. And when we do that, we are constricting that flow. We are constricting that law of circulation, of giving and receiving. Point number 2, giving and receiving are bound together, both physically and spiritually. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the law of circulation. We have this beautiful snow coming down. Maybe it's rain, right? I'm not sure what it is. It's a combination of the two. But this moisture eventually reaches the ground. It waters the plants. It does a lot of good things. And what extra is runs off into the little streams. And we can see it coming down here next to the church on 81st Street. And the little rivulets get bigger and bigger. And they go into the streams. The streams go into the bigger rivers. And then the rivers go into the ocean. It goes into the ocean where the sun warms the water. It evaporates into clouds. The clouds come back over the land. They come over the Chugach Mountains. And what happens? We have condensation and we have rain. It's a continual cycle. We have the same kind of a thing going on with the plants. Plants consume that water and they bring it up through their roots, and the water is transferred up to the top of the tree or the plant through xylem cells, and at the leaves, the photosynthesis process goes on, and food is created, and the food is sent back down to the roots in a continual cycle through phloem cells. By the way, happen to go down to there, displaying my knowledge of biology. But it's a continual circulation, and the same thing goes on within our own bodies. We have, these great lungs. We take in air, which is oxygen, and we take in that oxygen. It adheres to the iron in our blood, goes out to all of our cells. We utilize it, and the oxygen is spent, and carbon dioxide is created, and we exhale carbon dioxide, which then feeds the plants. It's a giant circle, all interdependency of giving and receiving. We sang a song. Jenny, you're awesome. She knows just when to do it. In the prelude song, we had a song called Circulation. And one of the lyrics, part of it in there, is based on a verse out of the book of Luke. Well, I'll just read the whole thing. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, shaken down and running over, they will pour into your robe. For with the measure that you measure, it will be measured unto you. In other words, what you put out into the universe is what comes back to you. Give, and it will be given to you. You do a good measure, which is, they carried grain in their robes in those days, and if you just poured a little bit in, that was it. But a good measure was shaken down. You shook the grain down, and it settled a little bit, and then you pressed it down, and you got a good measure of grain. With the measure that you measure, it will be measured back unto you. Now, you all know I like to check all of these verses, particularly, out of the Synoptic Gospels, against the five Gospels, a book by the Jesus Seminar, to really see what these 200 biblical scholars have to say about it. And I was surprised because this was pretty much lined out as not true. This was not said by Jesus. And I thought, well, that's too bad. I can't get up there and proclaim this is so great when it wasn't said by Jesus. But as I looked at that whole little chapter, right in the middle of all of that was one big red letter sentence. And that was, forgive and you will be forgiven. And I think what was going on here is the author of Luke took a little liberty here to enhance the thing that Jesus in all likelihood really did say, and that is, forgive and you will be forgiven. And he just expanded it to say, give and you will receive. It will be given unto you. And he added the part about good measure. So I think we can do a little forgiveness for the author, because he was just enhancing a principle that was already there. And it really is true. Give and it will be given to you. Forgive and you will be forgiven. Point number 3, when we open ourselves to receiving, all of life becomes a gift. And I couldn't help. I noted the sacred reading today. I asked Linda to blow it up. This was great. When we help one another, we are allowing Spirit to nurture itself, that capital I. We are assisting Spirit in its own self-knowingness. Don't deprive Spirit of an opportunity to take care of itself. Open yourself up to receive help from your fellow spiritual beings. And all kinds of stuff today. Generosity is living with your arms wide open, ready to give and to receive. At our center, we practice what we preach. And each Sunday, we count the offering. We usually wait till Monday to count it, actually. Well, no, we count it right afterward, but we verify it on Monday. But we then give every month 10% of everything that's collected on Sunday, whether it's auto tithe, whether it's check, cash, whatever it is. We take 10% of that and we send that to home office. Then we take 5% of that and we distribute back to the Anchorage community. And these are the people that have received community donations from us this year, nonprofits that we have donated this year. The Downtown Soup Kitchen, Victims for Justice. March we split between the McKennell House and the Clare House. The Anchorage Parks Foundation, Special Olympics, Identity, Alaska Healing Hearts, the Safe Harbor Inn, which a gentleman from Safe Harbor Inn I think is going to be here today to let us know what they did with the donation that we gave last month. Alaska Cares, the Equine Assisted Therapy Alaska, Hospice Alaska, and in December will be the Midnight Sun Service Dogs. That's not midnight. It was Midnight Sun Service Dogs. Midnight's his own service dog. And tapped for January of 19 is the Anchorage Literacy Project. So we practice what we preach. And if you have any ideas of something that you would like to see us donate to, please let us know. You can see me, and I'm trying to think who else on the committee. Christina is. Linda Steiner is. There are several of our members that are on it. Who else is?
Judy, Ann Lazenby.
Ann Lazenby.
Judy, Karen.
Karen, and is Karen over with the kids today, I think? I'm not sure.
Judy.
Huh?
Is Judy on it?
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah. But it's the same thing. You notice that we have not had a pledge program this year. This is the first time since I've been here that we haven't had a conscious giving program. And I don't know, it just seemed to me like it was getting old. It was sort of wearing out. And I was talking about it with somebody, and they said, you know, Don, my wife and I have been married for 14 years, but I don't get up every year and have another wedding and sign up again. When we got married, we made a commitment to one another, and that's what we live and what we do. And I think the pledge campaign is kind of like that. I feel like each year we're getting up and making another wedding out of this, and I really don't think we need to. And I thought about that, and it kind of rang home true to me. Now, there is something to be said if you wish to make that declaration. If it helps you to stay in that awareness and that consciousness of the flow, that consciousness of giving and receiving, I'll tell you what, I will be more than happy to take a pledge or a commitment to supporting the center financially. But we're not going to have a big program this year where we fill out cards and add it together and do it all. And we can talk more about that at the business meeting. But we're not going to have a big pledge program this year. Giving and receiving. There were once two brothers who worked on a family farm. The farm had been in this family for many, many generations, and these two brothers worked it equally, and they split all of the proceeds right down the middle. Now, one brother was married and had a large family. The other brother was single. The brother with the family lived in the traditional farmhouse and had all of his kids and stuff in there. The single brother lived in a smaller outbuilding. One day the married brother got to thinking, and he thought, you know, this isn't fair. I've got the whole family to help me, and you know, my wife does the cooking and the dishes and that kind of stuff, and I've got all these people helping me and my side of it. It isn't fair that I get the same amount as my brother who has to do all that stuff on his own. So he got the bright idea, and so one night he got a big bag and he filled it with grain out of his grain bin, and in the night he snuck over to his brother's and poured it into his brother's grain bin. Well, the single brother was thinking one night, and he says, you know, this isn't fair. My brother has a family to take care of. He has all of these additional responsibilities and things, and you know, it isn't fair that I get the same amount that he does. And he knew good and well that if he said anything to his brother, that he would insist that they split everything 50-50. So he got a sack, and he filled it out of his grain bin, and during the night he slipped over to his brother's house and he poured it into his brother's grain bin. And they were both amazed for years that their bins never went down any. Their bins stayed, well, they thought, this is a miracle. This is just awesome. Until one dark and stormy night, they were tippy-toeing across the field, and they ran into each other. And they looked at each other, and they knew what was happening. It's a law of circulation. So, in conclusion, I have one more quote for you. This is from Ernest Holmes. Thoughts are things. It is impossible for you to receive that which your mind refuses to accept. If you desire to receive more, you need to consciously develop the ability to mentally encompass it. You make your life mean, little, and limit its possibilities when you refuse to accept the whole gift of God. And so my takeaway today is to go back to the rich uncle. So I would advise you to accept the gifts of your rich uncle, who is God, universe. Give thanks. Have gratitude in your heart for all that you've been given. And continue to give out a small portion of what you've been given. Before we do the healing prayer today, I think we've heard the story of Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah. A story that many of us don't know as well, is that in front of the gates of Sodom there was a man. And he sat there, and everyone who came and left the city of Sodom, he admonished them to change their ways. Instead of fighting and hate, he admonished them to love one another and to support one another and to give and to be loving beings. And he did this year in and year out. And finally the mayor of Sodom got tired of this guy out there, and he sent out his sheriff to roust this guy out and get rid of him. Everybody's tired of him, ragging on him to be better people. And so the sheriff went out and saw him and said, "Don't you realize you're not doing any good? You've been preaching to this for years and nobody's changed." The man said, "You know, you're right. I thought about that, and I have been preaching this for years. And nobody is going to change. But if I stop doing it, then you will have changed me." And so it is with this awareness that what we do makes a difference. It makes a difference to us. So with that in mind, I invite my colleagues, practitioners, to join me in just holding our congregation, each and every one of you. We hold you in love and light. We know that in spite of the events of the last few days, that no matter what, we absolutely know that each and every one of us is a divine child of God. Each and every one of us has been created by God, by that infinite creative force, whatever name you choose to associate with it. We are the outcome, and we are perfect in every way, because that divine creative force doesn't make mistakes. And so however we are, however we show up in the world, we are perfect exactly as we are. And even though we may face challenges of lack and limitation, we know that we live in an abundant universe, and that we have within us the capacity to receive. We know that in spite of the appearances of health and dis-ease, that within each and every one of us there is a blueprint that is perfect. And we can set aside our judgment of what is good and what is not good, and we can just simply see the divine and the perfection within one another. And we speak my word now for those who are suffering from a sense of separation, a separation from that infinite divine creative force, separation from one another as children of God. And so all of the fear, all of the anxiety can fall away, because the truth is that we are beings of love, because we are those perfect children of that infinite creative force, and the nature of that infinite creative force is one of love. So we must be beings of love, and it is that love that we embrace in this and in every moment, love for one another. And so we just give thanks We give thanks for our awareness of the power and the presence of God within each and every one of us. We give thanks, and now we just sit back and we let it go, and we let it be, and so it is.